Trinui the other night. So,
Bruce, can I
Sorry, there's a wee bit, I must confess, it is a wee bit difficult.
Lisa, and she said the same.
Bruce,
sorry, ladies,
please.
sorry.
Yeah. Bruce,
sorry, it is a wee bit difficult, Chair, and I must confess from here, but I have actually asked for some order, please, because we are scheduled to finish at 11 o'clock, so we have some reasonable decisions to make between now and then in terms of approach. Sorry, Colin, you were wanting to say something.
Just the all these applicants are worthy of some debate in terms of going through each one, and that's likely to take some time. My suggestion is that if we are running short of time, then we actually adjourn this committee and perhaps reconvene later in the day if that's possible. I don't want to override into the next important meeting that we have as well. So I'm just
we do need some discussion. Yeah, I think that's good.
Look, thank you for that, Colin. I do appreciate that we probably are out of time. Have you guys got a meeting this afternoon?
Got a meeting at 11:30, so we do. I mean, we've still got an hour before that meeting.
I need to say, I have no capacity this afternoon for being able to reconvene. If we were having to adjourn, we'd have to move it to a different day. Perhaps follow up on Monday or something like that. But I wouldn't be able to stay for the afternoon, given other commitments built around the time we've got here. So look, I think I probably am just signalling, Jan, you might want to think about that as we go through it. So look, what I'd like us to do is firstly just talk about the principles of actually, because I think we need to have a principle basis of considering the merit of each application and then go through those. Jan, I think the first question I'd like to confirm with you is just $32,000 and $32,000. There's no extra money in kitty. There's no grounds for the committee to go back and recommend a greater amount to council be allocated, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I thought it would be a very simple question, or rather answer, sorry, to a long-winded question.
So according to it's actually $32,506.
Well, I realise that, but essentially we've got $32,000 to give away and we've got $78,000 applications. So I take your point. So, Colin, you already indicated, and I think this is clear from Robin's work, that they are all of merit. And one option is to make a relatively simple decision, which is that roughly they all get 40% of what they've asked for. That's roughly the ratio of applied for funds with the amount of money we have in hand. But I do suspect that probably satisfies nobody. So I'm not seriously proposing that, but I would just like to check with the committee that we aren't going to do that there isn't a willingness or a desire to do it on a pro rata basis, which would be if you've applied for 10 grand, you're going to get probably about 4 grand roughly on a percentage basis. Is there any comment people would like to make on that?
Could I make one comment? I was wondering if it might be, I think what Colin said, I think we do need to discuss it more briefly, but I wondered if there might be a couple which we might want to eliminate and then do the pro rata after that. At least we should discuss it, I think. And I wondered if presumably one of our criteria is, like, for example, if that group does apply to the whole of South Wairarapa. I thought there was one there which I thought might not apply to the whole 3 areas.
Thank you, Kay. You've anticipated where I'm going.
Oh, right. Okay.
which is actually it's too early to prorata. But actually it therefore says what is the principles or the criteria in effect that we'd want to apply as we look at all of these applications. So I think you're offering us one, which would be that it has got a dominance of South Wairarapa benefit as in contrast to further afield. Is that correct?
In contrast to smaller afield, I'd say, if one was particularly only to one area.
Locality.
Or elimination. Yeah, other way around.
Are there any other principles that folk would like to suggest be criteria that we take on board? I've got a couple.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
So one of the rationale behind some of those more localised groups and organisations was that they could apply through their various community boards if they were more localised with Featherston, Martinborough, or Greytown, rather than seeing district-wide benefits.
Yeah.
That worked, I think, to some extent in that first round of grant funding, but there were some gaps that weren't clearly identified in terms of the regional interest that we have in it. And I'll give you a couple of examples. Our Heritage Museum in Featherston, for instance, has not only regional-wide, but nationwide significance in terms of their display. Cobblestones Museum, for instance, represents our South Wairarapa early history and continues to do so and showcase it to the world to a large extent, but also regional-wide. So they're two key ones, for instance, that I consider worthy of consideration.
Colin, can I just be careful? I take your point. I just want to talk about the principles first before we evaluate, because I'm conscious that in our thinking of the individual ones, I would like us to have a level of principled thinking rather than necessarily personal preference. I'm not suggesting it's personal preference from you, but I think expressing preferences is coming further down. So there's something about a locality, there's something about region-wide. Is there any other matters that you would want us to take into account as we go through these individually?
For you, Mr. Chair, I just do think about capital and operationals. That they're applying for. There's a lot of capital.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you expressing a preference, Nuri?
No, I'm not expressing a preference, but I just think we have to be mindful of that, especially operational. Yeah, because that's an all day, every year thing. It'll come back the next year and the next year and the next year unless they build sustainably.
Thank you.
I have a comment to that. Having been in local government for a long time, I know it's hard for these groups to access operational funding. They can access other funding streams more easily for capital works than they can for operational support. If that's part of your thinking. Yeah.
Brilliant. Any other matters that we should take into account as we go through these?
Sorry? Oh, right.
No, you go for it, please.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't think it's particularly applicable here, but as a general principle, because actually I think we should have these criteria defined for every meeting, personally, rather than engender them each meeting. But I would think as a principle, we should be looking at the number of people it brings benefits to. But I think in this case, they seem to be all quite a large number of people. But just as a general principle of grants, you usually don't want to give it to just to one person who's personally benefiting without much benefit to the rest of the community.
Brilliant. I take a point, by the way, about broad principles, but it seemed that we were...
I want to just...
Sorry, Kay, can I just get some understanding about what you were saying?
Yes.
I didn't quite catch it.
Well, just if you're giving a grant for this type of thing, well, I mean, just when I was involved in the Eastern Central community, we used to get quite a lot of grant requests just for one person who got a phone for some kind of training somewhere overseas. A great benefit to that one person, but we used to tend to put more of a weighting on grants or for these sports teams and things. So to give over.
So we haven't got any applicants today.
No, just we were talking about.
Sorry, Janice just said we had one.
First one. Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
The Leaders Academy, it says I have been selected, so it is.
Yes.
Okay.
That's one I read last night, but they didn't present, did they?
Should have
Yeah.
been two aspects to one.
Yeah, so just a general principle, I think would like a large number of people to benefit from the money. So it'd be nice to support everyone.
Yes, okay, good. Is there any other matters that people would think we should take into account? Which I agree, by the way, Robin, we need to think about this being a more settled process for assessment going forward. Unless you had a particular template that you had in mind, but I think this is something, I take your point, Kay, we should try to be consistent on going forward. The other thing is I'd just like to know whether, and I think it's been partly covered in the process, Robin, which is that actually have they applied before and have they either succeeded or failed, and potentially for what reason? Okay, so we've got...
That's the only one that's done that, Bruce, is the one at the bottom. So
the
we've
Fareham
separated
Trust one.
The Access Radio Wairarapa was funded in the last round. We've already
The only
assessment.
So they're the only one that have previously in the immediate past received funding, correct?
In this year, in this round.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Rightio. Well, look, I am so there goes. I've got five matters to put a lens on for all of these, which is clearly there's something around locality. And I'm not going to say it has to be big or broad, but we want to think about that. We want to think about operational funding and actually, is it propping up or is it going to lead them in some way to sustainability? CapEx is perhaps a bit more standard in contrast to operational in terms of there is a particular project. This is a request to contribute to that, and we probably want to think about what they're doing with the rest of the balance. We've got a sense of probably breadth of benefit is actually what we're looking for here, rather than necessarily a particular or narrow. And again, I think we've covered it off pretty quickly. It may not be a big one, but have they been successful in the past and why? Or dare I say it, the converse, why they are not successful. So look, no other basis. Well, actually, the only other thing, sorry, Kay, you did suggest, are there any that, with those five lenses, anybody want to say doesn't make the cut?
Okay.
Yes, Kay?
Well, I was wondering about, I know Colin just said the Greytown Heritage Trust is regional, but just pertaining to this one cottage, which this grant was for.
I didn't say Greytown.
Cobblestones, Greytown's cobblestones.
Thank you.
Sorry, okay.
I don't even recognise that group or organisation. I've never heard of them. And I
Okay.
thought the cottage actually belonged to council.
No, it doesn't.
No.
It belongs to Trust House.
Okay.
Hey?
Also, it belongs to Trust House.
No, well, for $1 several years ago.
Yeah, belongs to who? The trust.
The trust owned it now. They bought off council for $1.
The council did own.
Well,
Yeah.
regardless of who owns it, it seemed to be very much located in one town, and I didn't see how that had a lot of benefits to the community from what was presented, but I could be wrong.
Well, I think as well, they're receiving rent for a tenant in there as well.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
Right, I think it'd be a bit wise if we actually just went through them. We need to consider them all on their merits. And I think through that basis, we'll make a decision as to whether they stay in. And when they do, we then got to make a decision about allocation. And so we need to go through it at a reasonable trot. We've spent, a good hour and a half at least hearing the detail behind it. We've got a sense of actually the process to make a decision, which is around these five lenses, given they all have merit. They've passed the initial gate. This is the second gate. And so if we could keep our comments reasonably direct to the lenses we're looking at, and indeed whether from your perspective they're in or out. And I'm looking for a consensus at this stage. If we have to go to motions, we will, but I think we need to make this in some sense working. Okay, so can we go from the top, which is the future leader application, please? Do folk have comments on that one?
So I had problem opening up my system. So this was the first one that was the individual. Yes.
Yep.
Well,
That's
yeah.
right.
On that basis.
And has not been spoken to, so we don't have the benefit of the presenter.
So on that basis, I don't think that's a strong case since it's just one person. And there was some talk about feeding something back into the community, but I found that a bit hazy. I thought if we had lots of money, I think given the criteria, that one doesn't shape up. My point of view.
I'd be inclined to agree in terms of what you've said, and it's also an application that they could apply to the community board to assist with some funding there rather than. That's just.
Sorry, just to add to that, through you, Mr. Chair, that one could easily come across to the Māori Standing Committee, because we know that whānau. And we've done that where we've supported young individuals that are going into tertiary, and this is an experience for her, and I'm sure she'll give back to this community. That's all.
Perfect.
The only thing that I would add to that is that presenting in person is not an absolute must. So
No.
we just need to be clear that the fact that this applicant or any other didn't present today shouldn't be a defining factor in our decision making. So whilst I agree with the other comments around funding or not, just to be clear, we don't enforce that people must present in person.
They can choose, absolutely.
Judging on that.
So what I sense out of this is that there are other opportunities. So the critical question here, Robin, is how easy can we signal to the applicant that there are other opportunities? Indeed, within council, you've mentioned, Narita, the Maori Standing Committee, or indeed the relevant community board. It would be if we in this case have a potential alternate line, if we could make that simple for the applicant while I'm sensing turning it down at this point, that would be tremendous.
Through you, Chair, yeah, we can, Māori Standing Committee is about to meet, so we could put that as an urgent item on the agenda.
Yeah.
And they could be seen next week.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, what I'm trying to say is it's for the one entity. Why don't we make it as simple as possible for a person that at this point doesn't get through our second gate here with this particular one, which would be great. Okay, so look, I'm going to, unless there is a particular desire that it not go this way, I think we're going to put a line through this particular application. Correct?
Bruce, can I make a suggestion that when we decline an application, but also refer them to another funding organisation such as Maori Standing Committee or our community board, that these people be contacted and provided that level of detail to assist them with their future funding.
Sorry, Colin, I made that as an assumption that would be
Yeah, I think
that we would do that straight after the meeting. So
it needs to be stated, though. It needs.
Yeah, I think it does. And would Robin kindly be able to take that on us?
Yes, I'll do that today.
Yeah, fantastic.
Thank you. So 402 is the furthest in RSA. It was back to, I think, our first presentation this morning from was it Steve? No, Steve. Sorry, I should be careful.
Robbie.
Yeah. So, folk, we've got the 5 lenses. That sense of locality or district wide, operational CapEx, number of people that benefit, and a sense of have they applied before.
I think it ticks a lot. It ticks a lot. It does a lot for the community. It's very important for a social group, for quite a lot of really lonely people. I think that's a very good job before.
So it's not operational, so it's not a lens we have to consider here. It's CapEx. Well, okay, Jan, you need to advise me on maintenance renewal versus capital, but essentially it's capital in nature. I think to recall it was an application. If we were to grant the full amount, it was 10% of what the current project actually is. So, Kay, your sponsorship of this is that it ticks all those lenses.
Yeah.
Do I have any other views that folk would like to add at this point?
Anything as I would sort of say, I think it's a little bit dangerous to decide the ones we think are good I know we discuss this later, but to scale them down automatically, because I know in grants applications, a lot of people anticipating it's going to be scaled down and do an argument for a larger grant, and especially the professional grant applicants. So I think we just need to be careful. I think we need to put the time into looking at what percentage each one should get to get more complicated.
Well, I think, sorry, I've just been trying to follow the process, which I think we've all agreed, we've agreed on, and in fact was sponsored by you, Kay, which was let's go through the applications
and eliminate
and consider their merits. Then we're going to have to make a decision about actually, is it the full amount or is it not? So I'm just keen that we unless I get a real pushback that my process is wrong, I think we've got to follow that one through. So at this stage,
I just want to say, I thought that you'd assumed we'd all agreed that we go through and decide if some would be eliminated and then scale them all.
No.
proportion. Oh, good, I'm glad. I've misunderstood.
Can I just make a point, Bruce? We're going to need to go a bit quicker. We've got a council meeting at 11:30.
I appreciate that, Jan, thank you.
Colin's got his hand up, by the way.
Sorry,
Colin's got
His hand up.
yes, go for it.
Okay, thanks, Bruce. In terms of the RSA's application for $10,000 for some CapEx work, I'm not a supporter of that amount of funding. The RSA are very much a commercial operation in this day and age. Their membership is made up of mainly associate members rather than serving or served members. I always believe that our community should in some way support them, but not to the extent that they're requesting today. I think, as I say, they have a commercial operation with their building. It's leased out. They're receiving a reasonable return on that investment. Plus, they do some other fundraising in the community where the community actually assists with their funding anyhow. So it's not something that I would support for the amount that they're actually requesting.
So that raises one small question, Robin, which is that actually the reasons we would turn somebody down is because there is a level of commerciality about them or their application, but we haven't excluded them on the basis that they're commercial, correct?
Not these guys, so they don't run the commercial arm of the RSA.
No, but they do
Right.
lease.
Okay,
They do
Brilliant.
I can't believe
okay. So I need
that.
a very quick link from the committee as to whether they're in or out at this stage, although bearing in mind we're going to come back to quantum.
The only thing I would point out is that Robin does have a wonderful spreadsheet that if we at this point were starting to indicate, not finalise, but indicate contribution, would start to give us a clearer picture of funds allocated and funds left for further tweaking and decision making. So it might be prudent to start indicating
Subtracting from our.
because then we start to see what money we've potentially used and what's left.
Yeah.
Just one way we could
That's how
start
we've
to
done in
move.
the past, yeah.
So
Sorry, I'm Melissa, I'm slightly amiss here. You're saying that you want a decision now over what we might.
I'm suggesting that if whilst we're going through indicating who's in and who's out, if we give also an indication of, for argument's sake, this one 40 or 50% of the requested, we
Right.
start to build a picture of the funds we are looking to allocate and whether we're within or over prescribed, and then at the end can start to tweak that to where it would need to be, but it gives us a clearer picture of where we're heading without a final decision.
Well, I sense there's a desire within the committee we go that way, if that makes sense. So going back to the process to make certain it's right, we've got the 5 lenses. We also then want to think about actually with each application what proportion or all or none that we would provide. For completeness, under the first one, none. We've also got some downstream action to send the applicant to a different part of the council quickly, which is good. So with the RSA, we've heard some debate about the merits of the application through those lenses. Is there anybody prepared to say this should go to the full amount or some portion thereof?
Can I suggest sorry. You go for it, Marita.
I was going to say just portion.
Yeah, I was going to suggest $3,000 as a contribution from council. That shows our commitment, obviously, but others may have a different figure in mind.
I would suggest 4,000.
Yeah, I was sort of thinking that this might be a good one for that sort of 40% length, so
Okay.
sitting at 4,000.
Yep.
A little bit more.
Happy for that.
Thank you. Let's put down
This
4,000
is just
at
an
this stage.
indication. We can go back and argue more
Yeah.
or less.
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you, Melissa. The adventure racing team from the school.
And just to be clear, they are actually applying for 2,000, not 500.
That is
their
The
contribution.
wrong number was pulled through to the sheet. The application is for 2,000.
Oh, sorry, my spreadsheet is 500, so it's 2,000 they're
The
applying
wrong
for.
numbers being pulled, that's
Yeah.
Right, okay, sorry, I was off obviously a old or redundant spreadsheet, sorry. So it's $2,000. Philip, again, the lenses, is there merit in that case, and if so, amount, please?
I think there is merit. I think there's merit in the fact that it is a relatively new opportunity to the school, and more importantly, it's encouraging our youth outside and to use a number of skills that I would imagine actually a lot of young people in this day and age aren't using. So I think there's definite merit. And I guess for me, it's where that dollar value is able to fit within our requests. But I would definitely support funding to this particular group.
Yeah, I would agree with that. You know, it's community and youth grants, sort of done.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I think it's a great opportunity for these young ones, a new sport to Wairarapa, and it's for those kids that don't quite do the football. Things that
Yes.
are great, and I know that her dad, I presume that was her dad.
Teacher.
Was he a teacher?
Teacher, yeah.
He's a good guy. He's a really
Yeah.
good community guy. So, you're a good supportive person in the community.
yeah, I support 100%.
Yes,
So look, could I
I
suggest,
agree
given
too.
then the restricted funds, that we probably look at the 40% level here to maximise what we can do. So I'd like to suggest that actually we put it down at $800 rather than the 2,000. Would people support that, or do they have a different number in mind?
My suggestion, Bruce, and take it for what it's worth, but I would suggest that we grant them the $2,000, but we revisit that as we work our way through the applicants.
Brilliant. I'm just looking for a consensus, and I'm putting up a straw man.
Yes,
I think, I'd be happy to see how that worked out by the time we got to the
Yeah.
bottom.
So we want to keep it at the original grant application level, which is $2,000, correct?
for now.
But for the time being, yes.
No, I appreciate the qualifications. I'm just wanting to understand and get that sense. House of Science. Science kits. Again, this was one, and again, I take your point, Melissa. They went obviously in a position. I think scheduling was the issue there, so we sort of treat it as good merit. So, do folk have a view based? We've seen the application as to where this sits.
It certainly is a disadvantage when they don't present, to not have the opportunity to ask questions, to clarify points.
They did present to the committee last round. So I wasn't on the committee at the time, but I did sit in and watch, and they brought their kits and talked about what they do, et cetera, et cetera.
What's your impression?
I think I certainly got the impression that they are working widely across South Wairarapa, and that they are providing certainly good quality kits to schools. Yeah.
Perhaps we could ask what Melissa's conclusion is, given that she's heard them.
Oh, I mean, I'm only one person and only one person's
just-
opinion.
I like that they're going to little wee country schools.
Yes,
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Waingaroa and Pirilaw, they're on the way out.
I thought the application looked good. Should we recommend like a 40% of?
Yes, Gate 2 suggests they've passed it, so it does come down to an amount then.
Okay.
They've applied for 3,000.
So 40% is the thick end of $1,200. Somebody can do the math for me, but it's about that amount.
Yes.
I sense that's probably where we're going, so we'll put
Yeah,
it
I mean, I think that's a great place to start.
let's sit at 1,200 and see where we get to. The Greytown Heritage Trust.
That
The
was
Kuka
the-
Cottage, this is $1,000. It was
Early
sorry?
the early indication from some of the members was perhaps they didn't quite meet all
Yes.
five of the criteria.
I
Yes.
thought that I didn't meet our criteria.
Yep. I think that's probably reasonable. Okay, so they're not making it past gate 2.
No.
Okay, so can we move to the cobblestone museum, or cobblestones museum, the operational funding? So this is funding and $20,000 application. Primarily from memory, it's operational.
It is.
Was the way it was displayed for us. I think this has a reasonable reach, this museum. I mean, Colin, you spoke to that before. We understand it's operational. There's an element to which they're clearly working hard, but they say they face some pressure. So operational means that it's indicative that it's not necessarily overly wrong. So I want to be very careful here. I'm not wanting to characterise what they've said, but we're saying operational versus CapEx operations is something which then becomes regular. Yeah. And our other test was the number of people that benefited. My assumption, a wee bit of modest knowledge about it, is that it probably does draw some benefit into the district, including from people outside of South Wairarapa as well. Any thoughts from people?
Colin, you go.
Yeah, can you not see down this end? Grace?
You've just got a little
Sorry,
tiny.
no. Look, it is a wee. It's quite no. Seriously, the positioning of the camera is quite a long way from the table. Believe it or not. So I didn't see it. So call out and speak, please.
Call as well.
So traditionally, South Wairarapa District Council have supported Cobblestones Trust over many generations, and we have had a memorandum of understanding which guaranteed a level of funding over a 3-year period. They didn't get an application in time last grant round, simply because they felt that thought that the MOU carried them over to another year, but it didn't quite work that way. My suggestion is that we consider granting an application because they have regional benefits of $10,000. That's 50% of what they requested.
Do you have a contrary view? Yes, Kay.
Yeah, I've had quite a lot to do with Cobblestones in the past, and I think it's a very good organisation and it does meet our criteria. But they are also very experienced and do have professional grant people doing the applications. And I know they do tend to ask for a larger amount based on the fact they know there's going to be scaling. I think they've got very good connections and they have got quite an ability to raise money. They do raise quite a lot themselves, but I would personally suggest scaling down a bit more than that. That's fine.
Are you suggesting the 40% mark then, $8,000?
Yeah. At least scale down that much.
Any other views?
I'd certainly be comfortable in the sort of 40 to 50% mark. I'd be happy to have 50% added at this point, bearing in mind that we will be able to review and perhaps tweak to the 40 if we sort of get to the end and needed to.
Right, so for the sake of it,
equally put in the 40% and go to 50 if we can when we get to the end.
For the sake of the decision, I'm going to suggest the feeling is they've met gate 2, so they're through the gate. I'll hold it at 10, and again, bearing in mind we're going to come back and see whether that's possible, but it gives us a sense of priority and waiting as we deal with that. The Featherston Heritage Museum, the 3 stories of Featherston. Folk, do we have thoughts on this volunteer organisation?
Sorry, just to clarify, in the request, they are actually looking for a multi-year fund. So whilst they are looking for 15,000, they are suggesting that would be across 3 years. So they're not looking for 15,000.
Fair point. Yeah, fair point. Thank you.
Yeah.
So criteria first, then the amount, please.
Well,
Yes, Kay?
well, it's interesting. I initially started thinking that it didn't meet the criteria of freaking the whole South Wairarapa, but he did emphasise its Featherston's history, but maybe that doesn't matter too much. But I mean, I think it's a worthy place, but as I said, he did emphasise his Featherston orientation. So, but yeah.
Because I think the thing to be clear of is that they are sharing the history of Featherston, but that they are sharing that both regionally and nationally. So I think in that way, they do meet the criteria of having a district-wide reach.
Well, sorry, Martin.
Oh, sorry, I thought Colin wanted to go ahead of me, but I support Melissa's point on this. I think one of the key things he said for me was that they do a lot of work with the schools because there isn't very much knowledge locally about the history of Featherston, the camps, or whatever. You talk to a lot of people around here, they've got no idea about it. I think any work they're doing in that space to reinforce the importance of those camps, and not just, and obviously not just those particular, but the rest of the Featherston, etc., wider area, is really important. We we need that. It's clearly not happening anywhere else.
Thank you, Martin. Colin.
Yes, okay. Thanks once again. This is another organisation where council have supported over the years with a memorandum of understanding, and obviously they I don't know if they applied. Actually, the feeling that their MOU hadn't expired until this year, but anyhow. Like Melissa said, the information they hold is of national importance, not just Featherston importance. The story behind the Featherston incident, the story behind the 60,000 troops that trained at Taranekau and marched over the Rimutaka.
Left from there,
had a huge amount of meaning for this country as a young country in those days. So if they're not around and they can't tell the story, who is going to tell the story? Thank you.
I just wanted to add that I think they're a group that have been established for so long, and they've just realised they need to have an international presence out there on a social media level, and they haven't got those mechanisms. They haven't got those sorts. They've got a stagnant website. They need to bring somebody into so they can open for longer hours, and they've got to do a whole business model really.
Yeah,
to make that successful. So they kind of need a different level.
Yeah, it's pretty invisible.
Assistance, yeah, absolutely, I agree.
Yes.
But the Army War Camp, I remember stories. I don't know if you remember Mrs. Hedges, the primary school teacher. Well, she remembers as a child the prisoners coming to the Kiwi Hall and teaching them how to do fine crocheting type of, and I
Sorry, can I just jump in here? Can I just jump in here, guys? It's a time thing. I'm getting a very strong impression that there is a lot of support for this application. So it makes me want to try and draw it into a conclusion that they've passed gate 2. So I just want to confirm the application. So they're looking for 5 + 5 + 5. Is that correct?
Sorry, I've just
15,000, 5,000 a year for 3 years.
Yeah. So I guess there's 2 questions in there. One is this committee in a position to commit to a 3-year funding? No. So we would just actually be looking at 1 year.
You wouldn't want to bind for
3
years at this.
We could do a 2-year term because that would cover this year plus next year, but the end of the triennium. Because we're 1 year into our triennium or just over that. So you could actually.
Admits we don't know what we're going to have though. I think that's.
No, that's
the danger.
I don't mind either. We can.
Yeah. Yes, I would certainly be comfortable funding for 1 year.
1 year.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like the other.
In that case,
That would be-
I would be prepared to recommend 100% of it. It's only 5,000.
I think that leaves us about 5,000 left.
We'll just see how we're going towards the
We're doing okay.
15 there.
Okay, so can I just check? We're recommending 5,000, correct?
Yep.
Right. Okay. You're through the gate, and we're saying 5,000. I personally would very encouraged by the conversation. I mean, I think it has got national significance, which means it's interesting. But they're volunteers, so I'd be very keen I'd be open to more, but I think I'd be very keen to see the volunteers have the strength to carry it through. So I would not want to commit to more than 1 year's funding, even if there was a possibility of going further. Okay, Access Radio, $3,000.
No,
Yeah, I
no,
know too.
no, well,
We were no last time.
they got 3,000 last time.
But they got 1,000 last time.
So sorry, I obviously don't have good data. I've got an the schedule sent through to me was that they have applied for $3,000. Is that not correct?
They did, but they got funding in the last funding round.
They're coming back for a second bite of the cherry.
In the same year. Okay, so we're saying no.
I
Okay.
agree.
Simple. The Greytown Junior Football Club.
I feel it meets the criteria. I think
Oh, yeah,
it makes,
that was just such a great story.
it definitely makes it through the gate.
Totally agree.
And we would be supporting the whole amount or a portion?
Whole amount for them.
$1,500.
I thought we should be giving them more.
Right, I think we'll stick to the 1,500. That's what they've asked for. Thank you.
Mhm.
What
Yes.
about
We should go full Hogan and
the
a whole
life?
lot of road cones.
What about the Life Education Trust? It's operational funding in effect, in the way that we heard they have to pay for an educator. And there seemed to be a level of going back to some of our criteria, strong presence in the schools in the South Wairarapa. And the amount I have on my list is 5,000. Do they make it through the gate?
Oh, no, sorry.
Sorry, yeah.
I thought Life Education Trust had national sponsorship.
Yes, so did I, actually. I must be.
Yeah.
That's why.
So it says other outside funding that they've received 20,000 from New Zealand Lotteries and 5 from Coles already. And they're currently applying for 5 from us. They make it through the gate. It's just what level can we support them, or do we wish to support them?
Well, and given that that would be that they would probably hit the 40% mark and no more, which let's say would be $2,000.
I'm comfortable with that.
I'm comfortable with that.
Yep.
Okay. So then we're on to the LED lights at the Wairarapa Sports Artificial Surface. So this is getting lights in to maximise good lights. Dare I say LED? I know a bit about them. On an artificial sports turf.
Can I just
You
want
go
to
for it, Colin.
Wairarapa Hockey, of course, provide the only venue available for people playing hockey effectively across the Wairarapa. And it is probably one of the cornerstones of bringing each community together in one central location. So it's had huge benefits for our students and our young people and our women who play hockey in the South Wairarapa and Carlton and Marston. So they all share the same amenity, and it's great that they actually come to us and ask for assistance with that. I have no problems with it.
Any other views? So in other words,
I would agree that it makes it through the gate. I'm not sure that I could support a full funding of the full amount.
No, I agree.
it made me raise, and I don't know whether we would know, Robin or perhaps Jan. Are the other local authorities contributing?
It says they've applied.
Yeah.
They've applied.
Granted at this stage.
So does that mean then if we're not quite at the 10 grand, is this just $4,000 as we're back to the 40%?
Yeah, I'd support that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I'd support that.
go with that.
Okay.
Through
So
you,
then we
2,800 left.
Thank you.
okay.
2 applications left.
We've got 2
We're probably
applications
going to be a
left.
wee bit, so we're going to probably, so there might be some pro-rating, but let's not get too worried. So Divine River, the reach out and the sustainable approach, particularly to care products. A local initiative, I take it.
Yes,
I tried to Google Divine River, but I take it they're local.
yes, I think it's a very good initiative,
Mm.
interaction with the school kids in the community.
Yep.
A real grassroots kind of thing, which
Any other views? We're looking at the gate here. Do they get through the gate?
Yes, no, definitely would support them through the gate, both from from a sustainable point of view, from the teaching of skills point of view, and particularly of the providing of sanitary products to sustainable sanitary products to those who may not be able to access them otherwise. So it meets the criteria for me.
So is that at 40% or is that 100% at this stage, Melissa?
I would
Or
be
some-
looking, I would perhaps be looking at about 50% at this stage.
1,500, yeah, that feels like the right number, if I can be honest, okay? And then we have the late application, which I accepted as being valid, and we should treat today as part of the application, which is the Ferrum Trust, which is again a level of from my reading, a more creative art related, but within the community, and they're looking for support to run workshops. Any thoughts, please?
How much are they applying?
They've applied for 2,850. I'm not sure, Robin, if you're able to answer this question. Is this particular workshop will attendees pay towards the cost of this, or is this one they're running for free?
I'm afraid I don't know.
You don't know the answer to that.
There must be some charge onto the attendees because the cost of doing it. What are they applying for? 2,000? Yeah, no, maybe not.
2,800.
Maybe they want us to cover.
It doesn't, the application, as far as I could read, doesn't say whether people
Right.
are charged a fee or even a nominal fee, Colin.
No,
Through you, Chair, sorry, just realisation that the April workshops already occurred.
Must
So-
have. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, they might be looking for retrospective funding, I suppose. I don't know whether we'd consider that, but I presume they are in effect.
Do we do
So
that?
is there, can I ask, is this a gate 2? Are they through gate 2?
Well, I'm not sure if they are fit.
I'm not sure.
That's quite a different thing, isn't it?
There's a bit light on information, to be honest, so.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to call it then that we need to put a cross against that at this stage. Doesn't mean that they can't come
And
back.
seek
But
further information.
at this stage, unless folk want to counter that, I'm going to suggest that we decline at this point.
Yeah, decline.
Right. So Robin,
Decline with a request for further information. Is that possible, Robin? I'm not sure when the next round funding would be, not till next year, but
I
it's
think
just,
they've declined because of a lack of information.
Information.
Lack of information, and if it sounds like the application's out of date, if it's already occurred.
so they're still having, sorry, through you, Chair, they are planning August workshops as well, and that would be before our next funding round.
I think a decline. That was,
I think
Yes,
so.
yeah, decline with lack of information.
Through
So what
you,
have we
Chair,
got? So Robin, what have we got there in the way of
1,300
numbers? Sorry, I'm just trying to add my numbers up and
I know,
my head-
Robin's just,
it's done it.
sorry, you've got $1,306 left.
Oh, how about that? Give somebody some more.
So there's a surplus of, wrong word to use, a surplus of 1,306, is that correct?
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
This is us supporting, they've all got merit, and they all, as we've agreed, in lots of ways deserve support, albeit we have to be a wee bit ruthless and we've cut 3 out. Is there any grounds to consider, so the numbers as we have sensed in this discussion, more or less stand. Is it of any value going the other way now, Kay? Of
Yes.
reallocating back upwards the
That's wonderful.
let's say the $1,300.
Yes, that's right.
Could we look at giving Ursula some more money? Adventure rafting?
Who's that?
Which one?
Because we've got her down at 800 at the moment
So who was that? The full amount?
for the future use, whatever.
Oh,
adventure racing, where did we land with that?
2,000.
We did give the full amount?
We've granted them the full amount.
Okay, so we've,
Oh, sorry, my apologies. I thought we gave it only 800. Sorry.
At the Divine River group, they're pretty worthwhile. We cut them down to 40%, didn't we?
50.
So 50.
So it would be, there's potential to increase the Featherston RSA application. Do we land at 40% with them, Robert?
40% for that one and 40% for the artificial surface trust.
Surface, yeah, could we give them some more?
Yeah, I'd give them artificial surf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we could go to 50% for the artificial too?
And can I suggest, unless you're keen, we just leave the $300 in balance? I think if we think about the principles and Robin, there is a suggestion, I go back to your point, Kay, that we probably, and I hope we can record and keep these principles in mind so that we can affirm them prior to the next allocation round and before we start our decision making, because I think it's important. Gate 1's you, Gate 2 is us. And then we can think about the amount in future applications.
Bruce, should I add, wouldn't it be the idea to make the applicants
Through your chair, we'll need to upgrade the grants policy.
Yeah, I was going to say, sorry, through you, Chair, that we, after the last grants round, funding round, Nikki, Amanda, Colin and myself got together and we've had that discussion about.
Yeah.
There was a lot of feedback that we got from the applicants who that presented to us.
Yeah.
So that has been put in play for the next round, that there'll be applicants.
Yeah.
Policy and overhaul, because it's not purpose, I don't think.
No.
It's not giving the applicants all the information they need to make it.
They should know what the criteria are.
Application that's going to meet criteria.
Yeah.
That's
Right,
what the
we're
radar.
running out of time, folks.
Do we need to?
Right. I think obviously there clearly needs to be a motion made by us. And I have a view that it should probably go in this form. I mean, in terms of your paper, Robin, it's essentially, please do your committee, do your work, and we know that we've done our work. But I presume we need a recommendations affirming the allocation as we have agreed. Correct? Please, can somebody help me?
Okay.
Yes.
Yep. So Amy has that.
Sorry, we did have two grant community and Nikki grant applicants, a combined total of how many dollars it is, Robin? To undertake projects as outlined in applications as submitted. And then we attach the appendix with all of the allocations to the minutes. And that's how we did the resolution at the last meeting. So just checking
Right.
that.
Can I suggest that we put the table with the allocations into the resolution, because then the resolutions.
I can put that.
Yeah, so that as per, and then put the table under that so that it's a clear recommendation that stands on its own.
Yes, I would like that, Jan. I think it should be fully included in the recommendation.
Yep.
That the committee recommends the allocation in these proportions. I'd also like the recommendation, Amy, to include our gratitude to all that have applied, and that we recognise that the applications represented an over subscription on the funds available. And I think that's important, that we recognise that we were faced with a decision where we had more money. Sorry, we had more. We were oversubscribed. We had more, a greater level of application than we had funding available. And I think that's important. But I also think it's important that we do thank the applicants. And I do feel, even for those that we've had to turn away, it's a challenge. So I think that means what we're going to do, if I've got this right, Jan, with your good advice, we receive the grant funding allocation 23-24. The committee notes prior to its consideration the oversubscription relative to the funds that were available in this round. I think the third resolution is, in effect, the committee recommends, based on its criteria, the following allocations, and that's going to then be the table. The next recommendation is we ask management to report quickly in the relevant ways back to all applicants.
Mm-hmm.
Is that okay? Are folk comfortable with that? Jan, I'm just looking your way down the table. You comfortable that we're making the right recommendation?
Yep.
We're recommending to council, by the way, correct?
No, I think
We're
this-
making this in our own right.
No,
Yeah.
this is the
These are
decision-making
decisions.
committee.
it's a decision-making committee.
Correct.
So in other words, we're not recommending, we are affirming,
Approving.
following, okay,
Approving, yep.
approving. Thank you. Okay, look, I'm comfortable with that, in which case, from the chair, I'll move that. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Colin. I saw your hand, mate. I keep my eagle eyes on the meeting.
I was wondering.
So in that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those against? It's carried. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Bruce.
Thank you very much, Bruce.
Look, no, thank you, Colin. Thank you for your run-through wisdom in this process, and all of you for your preparation. I could see that we were always going to be in this difficult position of not being able to meet everybody's aspirations. But I do thank you that we pulled together and got through the process. Jan, look, I hear your point saying that actually out of this, there may be some lessons relative to upgrading our policy or approach for the next round. And I suspect as a committee, we would welcome the chance to be engaged in that as well, because I think we've all probably learned a wee bit today as well, which is great. So thank you for that. I wonder if folk could join me very quickly once I find it in our closing karakia, please. Could I invite you to join in with me with the karakia? Kua mutu, matou mahi, mo tēnei wā. Manaki tia mai katoa, o mātou hoa, o mātou whanau, e o ki te eorangi. Thank you very much, people. Appreciate
Thanks,
your
Bruce.
time. I appreciate you giving us an extra half hour. But Jan, thank you for your reminder. I think we've got there just. So all the best
Thank you.
with your